What's going on, Flight Sim crew? This is your pilot in command, Ryan, and today I am very proud to do a little demo flight here of basically my solo flight. I got to experience that over the weekend, and it was absolutely an amazing experience, a very big milestone. Very proud to have made that accomplishment. So, in celebration, I just kind of wanted to perform a flight very similar to the solo that occurred. So hang tight here in just a few moments. We're basically going to go ahead and assume that I've completed the pre-flight, and I'm going to get ready to fire up the engines here, and we'll be going in just a moment. All right, normally right before we crank up the motor here, I would open the window and yell "prop clear" to let everyone in the area know that I'm about to fire up this Cessna. And immediately we are checking for a couple things here. We're going to be looking to see that we have an oil pressure rise, and by the time we are done taxiing, the oil temperature should have heated up sufficiently. We're making sure, mixture is rich. I've got my checklist here. So mixture rich, flaps are up, the voltage light is not illuminated, lights as required. So I went ahead and had all my lights turned on, so we don't need the nav lights, taxi lights. We can leave landing lights on. We'll leave the beacon on as always, and just to be extra cautious, we will have the strobe lights on during this flight today. Carburetor heat is set to cold, and now it is time for me to get the weather. Alrighty, we can see that the altimeter is set correctly. So now let's head back to Newburn ground. And typically here we go through a passenger brief. I will spare you all the passenger briefing this time. And go ahead and release the parking brake. Alright, and as you can see that I rolled forward a little bit, that gave me the opportunity to test my brakes. The brakes are working. And I'm going to throttle back down to only 1,000 RPMs, because that's all I really should be. And yes, we can see that the RPMs are now at 1,000. Let's turn on the transponder. That's kind of important. Put it on standby. Actually, let's just go ahead and put it on. There we go. All right, and I'm kind of curious. So, Microsoft Flight Simulator tower communications and the actual tower communications that I experienced do have some subtle differences. So, right about now, I would come over and say, Newburn Ground, Skyhawk 733, Foxtrot Mike at D2 parking, requesting taxi to the active runway. We have the weather. And then they would come back and they're going to give me some taxiways. And I would repeat that information to the tower to make sure that we both understood each other. And I would close with my call sign. So 734 Foxtrot Mike. We're not going to get that full experience, and I'll save you guys a lot of that verbiage, but I just kind of wanted to point that out. Another thing I want to show you guys real quick here, I'm actually going to show you a little bit of what we use before any flight. So this is an app called Foreflight, and this would show me the weather. It shows me our aeronautical chart, which all pilots are very familiar with. Right smack in the middle here, this is New Bern Airport. It shows me adjacent airports that are near me. It also shows me restricted airspace, which just southeast of me is Cherry Point, and that is sorry about that. So, and then the orange box, that is restricted airspace, so it may or may not be closed. It just depends on what the military is doing, if they need that airspace or not. You can actually see these little triangles right here. That is an aircraft. So, I'm not familiar with its call sign. Here's another one. I'm going to assume that's probably military since it's in the military's airspace. And doesn't seem that there's currently any traffic at New Bern, at least at this very moment. This is actually live as of recording, and you can see the aircraft moving right along there. Very awesome tool, just amazing. More features that I know really what to do with just yet, but as I progress, I will be doing more cross countries and a lot more training that will involve using this tool in pre-flight planning. So I just wanted to take a moment and show you that. With me, KEWN. All right, here's the taxi diagram. So this is what Tower would have said. So where I was located, they would have told me to taxi via Lima Kilo, hold short runway 22. So I would respond back to them, taxi via Lima Kilo, hold short at 22. All right. I'm going to try to adjust my camera here just a little bit. I normally wouldn't have taxied just that quickly, but it's a little more sensitive here in the flight simulator than in real life. I'm using a lot more braking than I normally would. Typically, just the rudder pedals alone is all that's necessary to steer the aircraft to where you want to go. And today, being that is going to be kind of a mock of my solo flight, we will be staying in the traffic pattern. So there is cloud cover, but the cloud cover is high enough that remaining in the pattern will still fall under visual flight rules. We would also confirm this in Foreflight as well. Foreflight is actually approved by the FAA. No, they have not sponsored this video. Why have I come to a stop? Come on, there we go. They have not sponsored this video, and they're pretty expensive annually for me to have a subscription to them. But if they'd like to sponsor my video, that would be okay with me. Alright, so this is probably the most boring part of flying, as any of you who have been passengers can attest to. Taxiing is just slow and boring, and you hope a bird doesn't fly in front of you or land in the taxiway just because they like to do that sometimes. I should be staying right on that center line. There we go. And hopefully me talking throughout this video will not be too much of a distraction. I'm going to try to really hit my numbers well, and either way I'm probably going to upload the video even if it's not perfect, but hopefully I won't be too terribly distracted. Alright, so in just a moment I'm going to be doing my engine run up in just a second here. Alright, and we always turn before the engine run up to make sure that the prop wash doesn't hit any aircraft behind us, and engine run up's pretty simple. I'm actually not even going to use my checklist, even though I know I should. So we're going to be looking at that tachometer. Also, I'm going to set my parking brake just to make sure the aircraft doesn't move on me. And we're going to go up to 1,700 RPMs. There we go. And then I'm going to test my left magneto. We're looking for a small RPM drop. And now back to both, with the RPMs build up again. And then to my right magneto. Alright. And back to both. In the event that we detected any abnormality, this would be a perfect time to call off the flight and take the aircraft to check maintenance. We're also looking here to make sure that the temperature is now in the green and confirm that my fuel tanks are full. We do one last check of my controls to make sure they are free and correct. I'm a big advocate when I check my controls. I want to actually visually see that the controls are doing what I expect them to. Unfortunately, here you can't really see as well as you can in real life, but I'll go to an external view. All right. Also, for the sake of making things slightly more easy, I will be doing left-hand traffic, so I'm going to move the camera over to this side so that hopefully when I do need to take a peek outside, it'll be a little bit easier. And with that being said, that completes our engine run-up. We would normally pull carb heat cold and then go to the lowest RPM possible. Make sure that the engine does not cut off with in its weakest state. So that completes engine run-up, and I would go over the emergency procedures at this time. So in the event that we suffer an engine failure before we hit rotation, we will stop on the remaining portion of the runway. In the event that we suffer an engine failure after rotation, during climb out below 700 feet, we will attempt to land back on the runway. If that is not possible, we will attempt a soft field landing to the left or right of the runway. And in the event that we suffer an engine failure after rotation and above 700 feet, we will attempt to circle back and land back at New Bern Airport. All of that is basically just to keep the emergency procedures fresh in the pilot's mind. It's more for the pilot than it is for the passengers. If you are a passenger, I would probably tell you that in the event that we do have an emergency landing, use items such as a bag or your shoe to wedge in the door before the landing, and make sure that when you exit, these are the only two doors, to the left and to the right, and exit and head to the aft of the aircraft away from the propeller with haste. All right, so next I'm going to flip over to Tower and ask Tower permission to take off. Okay, so she changed to runway 4. That's a little awkward because this is runway 22. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go into yaw mode real quick here. So all right, how about that? So now I'm on runway 4, which keeps Tower happy, and hopefully you, the viewer, did not have to, well, I know you didn't have to sit there and watch me taxi around to runway 4, because that would have been absolutely boring. So we are cleared for takeoff. As with any takeoff, you always scan for traffic just to make sure that there's not some unannounced intrusion of an aircraft that potentially is landing without communicating with Tower or doing anything properly. Since we know that's not the case, we're going to go ahead and get this flight underway. We always want to use the maximum amount of the runway. And so let's get on to the center line. It looks like there's a slight crosswind. I went a little bit over the center line. Alright, there we go. And we are now going to, where's my center line? There it is. And we are now going to perform that takeoff roll. So this will require some right rudder to correct for the P factor of the aircraft. And airspeed's alive, oil pressure is looking good, oil temperature is looking good. And we're coming up to 55. We're going to rotate a little closer to 60, which is basically where we are right now, and we are up. So we want to climb out at VY, which is 72, and I would want to try to maintain runway heading, so I'm going to get a little this way, because I've been blown a little bit off the runway by that crosswind. And then we're just going to maintain a good steady climb. Again, VY, and you can see it's a little bumpy because of the wind. VY is 73 knots. And make sure my trim is good. Alright, now at 700 feet, we go ahead and we bank. And we are doing left hand traffic pattern. She did not specify, but tower can specify. They can give you right or left at their discretion. And let's see, this feels about right. Yeah, so sorry about the camera being a little spastic, but there's my airport. And I have made altitude, so we are at 1,000, so pitch, power, and trim. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in my first notch of flaps. And we're going to turn to the downwind leg. Still climbing a little bit, so I'm going to take out a little more throttle. During my actual solo, I did 3 touch and goes. For you all, I'm just going to do 1. Just try to keep this video short and sweet. So now I'm flying the opposite runway heading, which would be about 22. And if I look out my left window, I should see the airport. There it is. And at this particular phase, so I'm actually going to climb a little bit because I've dropped down a little bit. And we are wanting to maintain good airspeed. So basically between 70 and 80 knots, we want to maintain pattern altitude of 1,000. As we get to 45 degrees off of the end of the runway. So, okay, we're at the midfield. So right now I would do my midfield call. So I would say New Bern Tower, Skyhawk 734, Foxtrot Mike, midfield runway 4, requesting touch and go. Or actually full stop landing. Let's change this to a full stop landing. And then they would give me clearance. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can get her to change to runway 4 because I do not feel like flying all the way around. And I'm sure you don't want me to have to do that either. In real life, I don't think Tower would ever do that. They would probably tell you to go out of the traffic pattern completely, and in order to make an adjustment. Alright, let's see if I can cancel these intentions. And hopefully the AI will have enough wherewithal to update to the correct runway. There we go. There we go. Okay, so at this point we're going to do our gump check. I'm a little past when I would normally turn to base. That is not unusual. We're going to acknowledge that clearance. So, because of how far away I am, this would potentially be a situation for a go around because I've overshot the runway. But I think we're going to find out if I have enough. Even though this is probably the worst traffic pattern I've ever flown, I think that we can still salvage this. Big thing here is low and slow. It's a very dangerous place to be doing maneuvers. In real life, I probably wouldn't do a turn that steep. In slow flight, though, when you have flaps, the pitch, or where you point the nose of the aircraft, is what controls your airspeed, and your throttle controls your altitude. As you can see, we are descending at a good 500 feet per minute. And in just a moment here, I'm going to line up on runway 4. And let's hope for a nice, smooth landing. Starting to get a little low, so I'm going to add a little throttle. And at this particular phase of the flight, I'm mostly looking, my scan is outside of that airstrip. I pick a target that I want to land on, basically the threshold, that number 4, and then my airspeed. So I'm keeping my eyes on how high I am, what my airspeed is, making sure I don't fall under 60 knots, because at 40 knots you can stall the aircraft. And this is actually looking really good. So we are going to come in. I'm going to go ahead and reduce my throttle to basically idle, since the runway is assured. Alright, and do a little drift. Alright, and there you have it. So, and so turn next taxiway. We'll go ahead and acknowledge that. Actually, no. Let's see. My next taxiway to get to where I'm going is actually going to be. I don't have my map up in front of me right now. I believe it's Bravo. I'm not sure though. Pretty sure it's Bravo from memory. And yep, thank you. All right, there we go. So this is the intersection, and coming up here is Bravo. So yep, there's Bravo. All right. Now I have had in real life, Tower will tell me to exit the active runway by turning onto the intersecting runway and then getting onto the taxiways. That's not unusual, so we're going to go ahead and acknowledge that ground handoff. So because of that little bit of an overshoot there, I didn't do my gump check. That's mixture rich, seatbelts and harnesses on. Throttle as desired, mixture adjust for, mixture rich, fuel selector valve on both flaps as desired, and making sure that the altimeter is set correctly. This was a short enough flight and that we don't have to worry about the altimeter. But as you could tell, she read me the weather pretty much every single time I communicated with her. And that brings us to parking. So, all right. Well, that concludes this flight here. You guys can stick around if you want to watch me taxi back to a parking lot. And well, folks, I appreciate you all watching this video. If you stuck around this long, again, this was just kind of a little demonstration of what a solo flight is like at New Bern, or KEWN, as the airport is known. And yeah, it was very exciting. I look forward to really what amounts to being a nice ramp up in skills and abilities. There's going to be a lot on my plate as I continue to learn to fly, and I'm sure I will continue to use this channel as a way of reinforcing what I've learned. So if you guys enjoyed this, please hit the like. If you want to see more of these types of videos about general aviation and learning to fly, I'm not an instructor, by the way, so I'm just someone having fun in a video game. But feel free to come back and check out the channel or subscribe if you'd like to. Anyhow, I am Ryan, and I will see you all in the next video. Alright. Let's see if I did a good parking job. No, I did a terrible parking job. There we go. That's better. Let's get rid of those flaps. Alright, folks. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for sticking around.